Joining me now is Abteen Vaziri. He's running for Congress in Texas. And the other night, he stirred it up in a meeting related to the Yasser Qadi Sharia compliant, that's what I believe it's going to be and is, development. Epic City. I've been covering, of course, Yasser Qadi since about 2009, 2010, somewhere in there. He had a mosque right down the road. Now he's in Texas. Well, our guest was born and raised in Iran, and he knows all about the rise of Islam and what it will do to a nation like America as well. And he was just speaking out in a town hall the other night, and now those clips, well, they're going viral. I'm going to bring him on, but before we do, I want to play one of these clips, and then we'll go right to him. He's joining us here tonight on Brandon House Live. Watch and listen to this, my friends.
Wherever it is. I called out Valentina Gomez for calling all Muslims, dirty names and being a complete bigot and trying to get social media followers. I speak the truth. But I also want to say, as someone whose entire family is Muslim, I'm not down with Sharia law. Sharia law says that women on that side of the room are worth half as much as men. Do you all agree with that? No, that's not true. That is true. That is 100% true. In Iran, Sharia law says women are worth half as much as men. That is 100% true. That is 100% true. And I'll talk about ICE. I'll talk about ICE. I think what the Biden administration did was a travesty to open the borders and let 20 million illegals in this country. This is a country of immigrants. I'm an immigrant, but this is also a country of laws, and we have to abide by the immigration laws. I'm not down with ICE doing all the inhumane things the way that they're handling it, but I also agree that people that are here illegally should be deported, 100%.
Wow. Well, he joins us now, Abteen Vaziri. Abteen, welcome to the broadcast. Thanks for being with us. Boy, they didn't like the fact that you were saying under Sharia, a man is worth a lot more than a woman. The men sit over here, the women sit over there, and a man's word and value is way elevated in Islam above that of a woman. And they freaked out like you were speaking lies. I mean, as I talked about in my Worldview Report tonight, and as my friend Rob Spencer, maybe you should pull Robert Spencer's some of his testimony real quick, because he talks about reliance of the traveler. That is a Sharia Islamic law textbook endorsed by some of the leading Islamic scholars in the world. They endorse it. And it's about that thick. And it teaches these things like you just said. What is the value of a man and her and a woman and her word versus a man? How many wives the man can have, putting your wife on a couch and beating her and these things. I mean, this is not hard to figure out if you read their own documents. And yet, look what you said. They acted like you were speaking full out lies. Boy, they tried shutting you down so fast. The old saying, methinks thou protestest too much. I think that's what was going on with them. What say you?
Well, first of all, thank you so much for having me on. I just wanted to clarify something. I was born in Iran, but I was raised mostly here in Texas.
Okay.
I left Iran when I was 9. We're political refugees. My father was actually a colonel in the Iranian Air Force, full bird colonel in the Iranian Air Force, and he did all of his training in Texas. He was here in 72, 74, and 76 in San Antonio, Lackland, and Kelly Air Force bases. And then my mom and dad moved to Biloxi, Mississippi, and then when they got pregnant with me, they went back to Iran, and I was born in Iran in 1978. Shortly after I was born, the revolution happened, and my father was given a death sentence and awaiting execution for 3 months. And what saved his life is actually the Iran-Iraq war, because the government, this murderous regime, this Islamic murderous barbarian regime that just in the last week has murdered close to 100,000 unarmed civilians, also killed another 100,000 people of military officers. They purged everyone. They either killed them, executed them, threw them in jail, and a lot of them ran away. And my father was one of the ones that was purged and basically given a death sentence. And his only crime was, he said, we should have a secular government. We shouldn't have an Islamic government. That was his entire crime. And he was on death row waiting execution. And then they forced him as an indentured servant to go serve in the Iran-Iraq war. Now, granted, he was serving his country, even though technically, it was the mullah's military, but he was still serving his military, and he fought in the Iran-Iraq War in '89 when I was 9 years old, or 10 years old. We escaped to Germany. 2 days after we landed in Germany, the Berlin Wall came down. And then in 1991, we awaited our political refugee status in Germany, got our green card in hand, and legally came to California. And I joke that I've been a refugee twice in my life, once from Iran and a second time from California. We moved to the great state of Texas in '95, and I just celebrated my 30-year anniversary as a Texan this past December. So I want to just clarify, I wasn't raised in Iran. I was there till about 5th grade, but mostly I was raised here in Texas, and I have my Texas values. I have dual citizenship, and my dual citizenship is Texan and American. So it was interesting, the other night when we went to the Epic Mosque, I didn't ask for this meeting. They had sent me a request on Facebook Messenger asking me, there was a candidate forum to go. And I went there and I said, okay, I'm going to come there. I'm going to speak my mind. And, I was actually surprised that they had invited me, because on my website, it says Stop Radical Islam. On all my business cards, it says Stop Radical Islam. So I was like, all right, if they want to have a dialogue, I'm going to ask them some challenging questions. And that's where it was. And by the way, women are worth half as much as men under Sharia law. That's a fact. And, they're entitled to their opinion, but they cannot make up their own facts. They're trying to whitewash, the extent of Sharia law and how destructive it is, and how it's a, military doctrine, and how it's incompatible with the U.S. Constitution. And here's another crazy part. Here's another reason why Islam in its entirety is unconstitutional. When the framers of our Constitution, I'm a lawyer, I have license to practice law in Texas and New York. As a lawyer, I can tell you, as a constitutional lawyer, I can tell you that the framers of the Constitution meant you to be able to pray, to whatever God you wanted. But Islam cannot be translated. The Quran cannot be translated to any other language. So it's unconstitutional, because this official language of the United States in English, you cannot pray to your God if you're a Muslim in English. So the reason for that is because if they translated the Quran to all these other languages and they knew all the ridiculous things that are said in the Quran, no one would in a million years follow that. So that's why Sharia law and backwards ideologies and military doctrine and all the things that are associated with Sharia law are only to be spoken in Arabic. And majority of people that are Muslims don't speak Arabic. So majority of people are memorizing and saying a bunch of gibberish that they don't even know what they're saying when they're practicing their faith.
Yep, that's exactly what.
Including 90 million people in Iran that have no idea what they're saying when they're practicing. And you're finding in Iran, I just did a show with Dr. Hormozi, Iran Live Ministries. We did a live, Christian ministry into Iran, and there's something like 10 million underground Christians in Iran that are so disenfranchised with the government and Islamic rules and Islamic laws that they're practicing their Christian faith underground in Iran, because if they're known to be switched from, born Islam to Christian, like I switched, I got baptized this past summer, and I'm a devout follower of Christ. If you're found to have done that in Islamic countries such as Iran, you could be executed. And
Absolutely.
That's why these people are practicing their faith underground, undercover, underground baptisms, underground Bible studies, underground weddings even.
Absolutely. Here, we go to a little bit of Robert Spencer testifying before Congress this week, good friend of mine, regular on this broadcast. And he's talking about what Islam is about from their own authorities. Listen to this.
And the conflict between the two legal systems will grow as Sharia adherents increase in number in the West. This fact has been obscured by misinformation about what Sharia actually is. When the city of Keller, Texas, scrapped an anti-Sharia resolution in January 2026, the Hamas-linked Council on American Islamic Relations, CARE, stated that like canon law for Catholics and halakha for Orthodox Jews, Sharia refers to the rules that Muslims follow, including praying 5 times a day, fasting in Ramadan, giving in charity, and following the laws of the land in which they live. If that were really all that Sharia were about, no reasonable person would have any problem with it. CARE doesn't mention, however, that Sharia is inherently political, supremacist, expansionist, and violent. Far from being the Islamophobic conspiracy theories of CARE's imagining, These are facts that Muslim authorities on Sharia openly attest. Reliance of the Traveler, Umdat as-Salik, is a classic manual of Islamic sacred law, that is Sharia. In 1990, Dr. Taha Jabir Alawani, president of the International Institute of Islamic Thought, as well as president of the Fiqh Council of North America, stated that this Sharia manual was useful as a textbook for teaching Islamic jurisprudence. The most prestigious institution of Islamic learning in the world, Al-Azhar in Cairo, stated in 1991 that the same manual of Sharia conforms to the practice and faith of the Orthodox Sunni community. We read in this same guide to Sharia that jihad means war against non-Muslims and that it is a communal obligation upon the Muslim community. The object of this war is to establish the hegemony of Sharia over the conquered land. For non-Muslims, this means an institutionalized, highly codified second-class status that denies them basic rights. Non-Muslims living under Sharia must pay the non-Muslim poll tax, jizya, that is specified in the Quran, verse 929. This religion-based tax is designed to indicate, as the renowned Islamic scholar Ibn Kathir explained, that the non-Muslims who are paying it are disgraced, humiliated, and belittled. The non-Muslims in this state of disgrace and humiliation are not allowed to build new houses of worship or repair old ones, so their communities are in a perpetual state of decline. They are forbidden to make any public display of their religion. They're relegated to the most menial jobs in society, for they are forbidden to hold authority over Muslims. If they say anything critical about Islam, Muhammad, or the Quran, they're liable to be put to death. From all this, it is clear that Sharia is not simply Muslim personal religious law. On the contrary, Sharia-based legal and civic institutions are contrary to America's founding principles and violate federal law and the Constitution in numerous particulars. The death penalty for mentioning what Reliance of the Traveler terms as something impermissible about Allah, the Prophet, or Islam, that is blasphemy, is directly at variance with First Amendment freedom of speech protections. The Islamic imperative to establish the hegemony of Sharia as the law of the land, as in today in the Islamic Republic of Iran, Afghanistan, and elsewhere, is obviously at variance with the First Amendment principle of non-establishment of a religion.
And he goes on from there, and people should watch the entire testimony. You want to comment on that?
Yeah, let me just before we get started, I think, I'm running for the Texas 32nd Congressional District. I think a lot of people look at my name, and here in the West, even though I've been here in Texas, in the United States 40 years, Texas 30 years, I think a lot of people don't understand my name. They just look at it, Abteen, they think it's Abteen, I think it's an Islamic name. Let me just clarify. My name is actually a Zoroastrian pre-Islamic name. And it basically, the name Abteen comes from Upton, U-P-T-O-N. And it comes from a book that was written. It's the largest body of poetry ever written in the world, called by a poet named Ferdowsi. And it's called The Book of Kings, or Showdown. And in that book, it's all about the atrocities of the Muslim invaders that invaded Persia. And there's certain heroes. And one of those heroes is Abteen, which is the father of Ferdinand, two kings in the book. And Abteen means the seeker of truths. So my name literally translated, it's not an Islamic name. In fact, in today's Islamic Republic of Iran, it's illegal to name your kid Abteen because it's a pre-Islamic name, and they don't like the names of kings like Darius and Cyrus. They don't allow those names. And then my last name, Vaziri, it means they're king's right-hand man. And I think one of the things from a historical perspective, people are interesting for people to know is that all the stands that you see, the Uzbekistan and Pakistan and all the stands, these are all used to be states in the Persian Empire. And even India was one of those states. It was called Hindustan. They changed their name to India. And back then, the game of chess was created in India, which was part of the Persian Empire. And the queen piece that we call queen was actually the vizier, or the king's right-hand man. So I just want to clarify that. But nowhere in the world were there more atrocities, and I didn't know this. I had to read Dinesh D'Souza's book to really go over it. Nowhere in the world were there more atrocities done under Sharia law and under Islam than in India. The Muslims went there and they enslaved the Indians. They forced them to pay taxes. They forced them to pay all kinds of taxes and all kinds of, money back to them under Sharia law. And they just had enough and killed over 1 million people in India. And the Indians had had enough of it. So they ended up splitting. They ended up splitting Hindustan and Pakistan into two different countries. They kicked the Muslims out and gave them their own country. Now it's known as Pakistan. What did Pakistan do after all of the atrocities they did in India? They got nuclear weapons and tried to nuke India. And this is something that people are talking about. Well, why doesn't Israel just give Palestinians their own piece of land? Well, what is the first thing Palestine's going to do? They're going to try to go to war with Israel. And they're probably going to try to get nukes to go to war with Israel. And this is something that over and over, I think we need to pay attention to. People in the West don't know that Lebanon was one of the most beautiful countries in the world. Lebanon was a majority Christian country. They opened their doors. They allowed the Palestinian refugees to come there. The Palestinian refugees came there and started everything, and then they turned that country into a whole Islamic country. And Lebanon and Iran were the two countries that Islamists really wanted. It was a game prize. It was something that they wanted to take over because in their mindset, if they could take over the two most freest countries in the Middle East at the time, Iran and Lebanon, they could take everything else, and they did. And a lot of people don't know that Yasser Arafat, the Palestinian PLO terrorist leader, went to the same, Soviet Marxist training camps as Rafsanjani and Khamenei, who are running Iran right now. And they made a pact. They said that we're going to take over Iran and make it an Islamist country, and we're going to use those resources to kind of build this Islamic caliphate. If you look at the lawsuit from the Holy Land Foundation in 1991, or the document that was written in 1991, May 22nd, 1991, that was exposed under the Holy Land Foundation lawsuit, you'll see the game plan of how to start the Muslim Brotherhood and turn the world into the Islamic Caliphate. And word for word, what they're doing here, building these mosques as essentially military outposts and financing arms for terrorism, for the Hamas cause, for the Palestinian cause, you will understand this playbook has been going on for a very long time, and we all have to understand it. We all have to fight against it. And it's the plans that they have for the free world are crazy. And this is why the election of Mamdani is so ridiculous. One message that I could give to your guest is do not elect a single Muslim to any political office, whether it's city council, whether it's city land commission, any kind of commission. Definitely not Congress, definitely not the United States. And these people will all come friendly like the way they did in Iran, and then before you know, they take over, all your freedoms are gone and you're being enslaved. This is my most important message. And funny enough, there's people on Dallas Express interview that I have that are saying, oh, I'm one of those people that is, lying for Islam, and then once I get in the office, I'm going to switch. If my message is to not vote for any Muslims, and that you include that and not vote for me, even though I'm a Christian, then I've succeeded to make sure that these Muslims don't get a foothold and turn this country in Texas into a hole that they did in the Middle East and now in Europe. Europe is completely gone, and we're not going to allow that to happen. Excuse my language.
Here is another clip of him at the, I guess he's at the mosque. I can't believe they let you come in there. Here we go.
The American taxpayer has been carrying the rest of the world on its back. We got to stop getting the middle class in America to have to subsidize the rest of the world. Whether it's drugs, all the pharmaceuticals around the world, all the intellectual property.
Sorry to interrupt. This is the Dallas Express Forum.
That was a Dallas Express Forum. Okay, we'll keep going with it, though.
It's carried on the backs of our middle class. Our middle class is just tired of that. We're going to balance the budget, we're going to reduce the debt, and we're going to take down this burden on our middle class.
Well, I agree with that. Too bad that was such a bad recording, but yeah, I agree. Middle class is they can't take anymore. Okay, so tell me what is going on with Epic City. I know very well about Yasser Qadi. He had the mosque down the street from where I'm sitting. I've been warning about that guy since like 2009, 2010. And now everybody's waking up to him like America mostly does, a day late and a dollar short. And I don't know that anything will be done. I know there's a lot of tough talk going on in Texas about doing something about that. But at the end of the day, I'll be really shocked if Yasser Qadi doesn't get his 402-acre compound built just like he wanted. He may get slowed down after he do some things. But I just don't see the political will when they're making Pakistani Day and all the other garbage going on in Texas.
You know, it's really important to pay attention to what's going on in Iran right now. Something like 100,000 people have been massacred by military-grade weapons. These are unarmed civilians. And this is another reason why do not ever give up your guns. Ever, 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 ever. The right to bear arms. If Iranian people had the right to bear arms, these mullahs would have been out on their tail 47 years ago. They wouldn't have to take to this and 100,000 people getting slaughtered. But one of the most important things to note is something like 40 different mosques have been burned down. And why are the people in Iran burning down mosques? Well, one, they're completely disenfranchised with Islam, and they realize Islam is not a friendly religion, and Islam is their, the language, the religion of their oppressors. But more importantly, the reason that they're burning down these mosques are military outposts for the IRGC. These mosques have morgues and mortuaries inside of them. They have weapons depots inside of them, and they have jail cells. So when the IRGC, they arrest somebody, they take them to a mosque and throw them in a jail cell. So imagine what kind of place of worship has a jail cells, weapons depot, and a mortuary inside of it? Only a military outpost. And when I was at the Epicenter, when I went and did the candidate forum there on Monday night, I noticed the Sharia compliant Islamic financing bank, right? So this is how they're using this. And by the way, where do these people afford to get a $40 million mosque? Who's behind it? Is it the government of Iran and Qatar that are basically financing these and using them as a financing arm for terrorism, for CARE, for all these different organizations that are funding Hamas? And if these are places of worship, I asked them a question, and we don't have that video, but I'll send it to you. In the video, I said, I just noticed you guys did a prayer, and you guys keep talking about Israeli genocide, but the real genocide is in Iran. 100,000 people have been executed, and they're going, even the people that have been shot, they're going hospital bed to hospital bed and point blank shoot them in the forehead while they still have IV and getting treated for being shot earlier by the government. And that's the real massacre. And why didn't you guys pray for them? And then they're like, oh, well, these organizers are all CIA, and this is, Mossad and the CIA. Well, that's BS. And by the way, in the Christian faith, you pray for your enemies too. So if these people, if you're a place of worship and 100,000 Muslims in Iran have been massacred, wouldn't you pray for them? And if you're not praying for them, if you don't believe those 100,000 people, then you're not really a religion. You're definitely not a religion of peace. You're not a religion. You're a military ideology. You're a political ideology. Because if you can't pray for 100,000 people that are dead, then what kind of place of worship are you? So you're really, in reality, a military outpost and a financing arm for terrorism, and that's all you are.
I think I found the clip. Here we go.
Until we don't have terrorists running the country of Israel, there's no reason for us to be sending them any money. Thank you.
So I'm an America First candidate. As long as Israel's intentions align with the United States, I support Israel. The minute that Israel's intentions don't align with the United States, I do not support Israel. But let me tell you, all of you here, I noticed prayers outside. There's a genocide going on right now in Iran. 100,000 of our brothers and sisters, they're all Muslims, have been slaughtered. And I didn't hear a single person here in this room praying for our Muslim brothers and sisters. 100,000 people have been slaughtered. And let me tell you, in Farsi we have a saying, in hell there are snakes so vicious that make you run for cover to a cobra. In hell there are snakes so vicious that make you run for cover to a cobra. Right now, the Iranian people, the only help that they're getting is from Israel. Can you believe that? Not a single Muslim country in the Middle East has helped my Iranian compatriots, my family. They're getting killed, and Israel's the only help they're getting, that's helping. So, did you pray for your brothers and sisters? Did you pray for your brothers and sisters in Iran that are getting murdered? Did you pray? 100,000. The real genocide is going on in Iran right now. Did you pray for that? Did you pray for the 100,000 Muslims that genocide is committed against? Not a single one of you. I listened to prayers earlier. Not a single one of you.
Just to reiterate.
Hey, what's the deal with that dude right there? What's this dude's deal? What's his deal?
He took my microphone away, and then a few people, we had some video recording, and we couldn't make it out, but my campaign manager said a couple of people had called for my beheading, and then other people told them to be quiet, and they were shushing them. And I haven't confirmed that, but there was, a bunch of people ran outside and, were waiting for us in the parking lot. Even when we were in the parking lot, they were there. We were trying to record another video to close out. They were harassing us in the parking lot. One guy in the car kept going back and forth. Another guy was there taking up our license plate. They've already, some of these people are, they're trying to intimidate. They're trying to intimidate my family, my girlfriend, all of that. But listen, I have to speak the truth.
By the way, I did notice one guy zoomed in on you and took your picture, which is obviously not illegal in a public setting. But it's interesting they all of a sudden want your picture.
Yeah. And by the way, listen, I didn't go over there to try to start a fight, but I said, you guys invited me. I'm going to tell the truth. There's going to be some things you're going to agree with me, and there are going to be some things you're going to disagree with me. I think this is the type of leaders that we need in Washington. And by the way, the other 7 people that are Republicans that are running against me in the Republican primary were all invited. Not a single one of them wanted to go there, nor had the courage to go there. But, and I don't blame them.
Who are those other people then sitting with you?
These were all the Democrats. Oh my God, I have a video recording.
So the Democrats showed up, but you were the only Republican candidate that showed up.
The guy to my right, his name is Mark Nugent. He's also a Republican, but he stood up and started kissing their tail and saying, "Assalamu alaikum. I'm pro-Palestinian. I'm pro-Hamas, and this is a guy that served in the U.S. Army, which was bothersome. Every single one of these other people that was there, they were just peddling the Muslim vote. And it was just disgusting. They're all selling out America. They're all selling out Israel. They're talking about ICE. They're talking about Trump. They were all there just basically trying to be as anti-American as they could to try to peddle a few Muslim votes. I'm the only one there. I don't care. I don't want the vote of people that are not here to assimilate. I'm an immigrant, but I came here as a political refugee. I have 4 degrees. I was a hedge fund manager. I have a law degree or law license in 2 states. I'm an MBA from SMU. And I've assimilated. I'm not down for carrying the flag of any country other than Texas and other than the United States. And I've assimilated.
What about this chick that was until today was on your lieutenant governor, I guess, has removed her, Dan Patrick, from the Religious Liberty Commission established by President Trump, because she wanted to start grilling a bunch of Christians about Zionism. And there she walks in claiming to be America first, speaking apparently for all Catholics, telling we Catholics, us Catholics, we're not Zionists, although I know some of the Catholic leaders that actually are, and I'm watching some of them on social media saying, well, I'm a Zionist. I believe in the historical right of the land for the Jews, and I'm Catholic. But anyway, she was trying to say, I guess, speak for all Catholics. But there she was wearing the American flag with the PLO flag. I mean, come on. The point I'm making is, We've got a problem
disgusting.
We've got a problem in the Republican Party. We have a problem within MAGA, the America First crowd. We have a serious problem with these morons that don't understand the first thing about Islam, nor do they understand Israel, nor do they understand the difference between Zionism and Christian Zionism, which I'm a Christian Zionist, but she kept trying to say that Zionists were about Bible prophecy. Well, some Zionists are atheists, sweetheart. I mean, the stupidity that's running among
Zionism is just another term they're using for they're anti-Semites, and they don't want to.
Of course, they
don't want to admit that they're anti-Semites. And here's another thing. In the Israeli-Palestinian thing, I always was on the side of Israel. And there are a couple of reasons for that. I was born in Iran. There's 93 million people that live in Iran. I don't have any Palestinian people that are born from my country of birth. But there are a lot of Jewish Iranians that were born in Iran. And 10% of Israel's population, people don't know that. 10% of Israel's populations are brothers and sisters that were essentially expelled from Iran, that are Iranian Jews that went to Israel. But let me tell you, more importantly, when my father died, my father was a colonel in the Iranian Air Force. And the atrocities that were done in Iran, the 100,000 or so officers that were killed, they were all killed by the PLO. The PLO brought their terrorists to Iran and started mowing down officers. And then they used caskets to steal Iranians' national jewels, the king's national jewels. And they stole, including the largest diamond in the world, which is called the Koh-i-Noor, that ended up in the British Museum. They stole all of the royal jewels, the Palestinians did. So they hate us. They hate Iranians. They're not doing Iranians any favors. And then I see these Iranians that are just so stupid when they're pushing for the Palestinian cause. Well, the Palestinian cause, By the way, the Palestinian people are also victims. You know, there was something like 67,000 Palestinians that supposedly died in Gaza. Well, 57,000 of them were Hamas members. And the civilians that died is because the Islamic Republic wants them to die, so they can get, so they can look good in front of the international community and get some sympathy from the international crowd. But the Islamic Republic is using these Palestinians to get their political cause. And the people that are pro-Palestinian, they're so stupid that they don't know what's going on. They're being played. They're, as Stalin would call them, they're just useful idiots.
But Carrie Prejean put out a letter yesterday stating that, and you and I know this is not true, that I wore an American flag pin alongside a Palestinian flag as a moral statement of solidarity with civilians who are being bombed, displaced, and deliberately starved in Gaza. I did this after watching many participants ignore, minimize, or outright deny what is plainly visible, a campaign of mass killing and starvation against a trapped population.
Why is she not carrying the Iranian flag for the 100,000 civilians, unarmed civilians that were slaughtered by their own government in Iran? What? And if they can't answer the second question, then they're full of crap and they're being paid by Qatar to say this stuff.
So why wasn't she wearing Why wasn't she wearing the Iranian flag in solidarity with the 100,000 Iranians slaughtered by their own regime?
That's exactly right.
She concluded it by saying, I will not be bullied. I have the religious freedom to refuse support for a government that is bombing civilians. So clearly she's referring to the Israeli government and starving families in Gaza. And that does not make me an anti-Semite.
That 100% makes her anti-Semite.
But she doesn't say anything in reality about who it was that was stealing the food, who was killing the people of Gaza if they opposed Hamas. It was Hamas and their supporters who elected Hamas. And by what majority in Gaza? She doesn't bring up any of these facts. Nope. Now, were there some people killed from collateral damage? Happens in war. But to act like the Israeli government was going around starving them, it was the Israeli government that was pausing the war to bring in food. Am I wrong?
100% right.
How can we win on the right, supposed right, or MAGA, or America First, when we have these kind of useful idiots running around out there?
It's sad. I mean, education. I think people that don't understand history are, bound to repeat the same mistakes over and over. And, always follow the money. I mean, this is another thing that I think is important. A country that's not even a country of 300,000 people called Qatar. I always wondered when, they sponsored Manchester United. I mean, that's a big dollar sponsorship. And in there says,
what is Qatar, that? Wait, what is that?
Manchester United is a British soccer team. So they used to sponsor Manchester United and said Qatar Foundation. Like when you sponsor something, you want someone to buy your product, right? What does a country with 300,000 people have as a product, right? So I never really understood that till now. I understand that the Europeans have conspired against the people of Iran, and they essentially have frozen and not bought any gas from Iran. But what are they doing? And this is the same problem that we're dealing with right now in East Texas, is that there's a South Pars gas field. It's one of the largest gas fields in the world. And Iran is being starved and not allowed to pump it. And Qatar has been pumping it. So the trillions of dollars this Qatari government has, that is Qatari Foundation, all this money that's coming is all stolen gas money from the people of Iran. And they're the ones that have bought, Tucker Carlson and many, many other people in the media. And they don't want these mullahs in Iran to be gone because of personal gain. Because imagine their trillions of dollars, the gravy train is over overnight if Iran is freed. And when President Trump sends Jared Kushner and Steve Witkoff, by the way, I've done deals with Steve Witkoff, wonderful gentleman. But people are wary when they hear Jared Kushner is the one that's going negotiating on behalf of the United States with the government of Iran. And then Jared Kushner gets all of his money from his fund from Qatar. So there's a conflict of interest there, Yeah,
I know. You're singing from the same songbook, I think, as we are. And then Carrie had to put this out. Carrie put this out just like 20 hours ago. This is every Zionist supremacist worst nightmare. Muslims, Christians, and Jews all united under the banner of religious freedom. We condemn Zionist supremacy and the demanding we deny our individual faith for the fear of being called an anti-Semite. Religious freedom lives on. And there she is, the old interfaith dialogue. And this woman thinks she's a Christian doing this. I mean, this is not the behavior of a Christian, because you know what? There's one thing to agree with someone politically, whatnot. But when you try to somehow be involved in this kind of what I think is lies, that's not being Christian, all right? Because these people are not interested in religious freedom, okay? If you study Islam, we know they're not interested in religious freedom. That's why Robert Spencer was just testifying about what Sharia does and from their own authorities, and the reliance of the traveler, which is, you know, kind of the judicial law book for their religious Islamic agenda, endorsed by their own international experts. And it does not allow for freedom of religion. So is this woman lying, or is she dumb?
She's definitely lying, because, you know, she can't be that dumb and just be that complete ignorant about the facts. But let me touch on something. You know, Zohran Mamdani, who was elected, you know, essentially by the Democratic Socialists of America, you know, a new communist a group of keyboard warriors who, by the way, are very sophisticated, very computer savvy and very social media savvy. And unfortunately, are Republicans. You know, they're still on Facebook and some of the older methods of social media. But they elected this guy. And, you know, he has a lot of similarities with Ayatollah Khomeini. You know, remember I mentioned earlier Dinesh D'Souza's book about the atrocities of the radical Islam and Sharia courts in India, and what started a civil war, and they had to split those two countries. But the Muslims in India that got expelled, one of those families that had to go to Uganda because they were expelled from India was Zohran Mamdani's family. Another family that was expelled by the Muslims in India, I mean by the Hindus in India, and had to come to Iran, was Ayatollah Khomeini's family. So Ayatollah Khomeini, not Khamenei, not the new one, the old one, and Zohran Mamdani have a lot in common. They're both Indian Muslims who are Marxist, socialists, who went to another country and promised a bunch of free stuff. So they have 7 similarities together. But he said something interesting the other day. He's like, oh, you know, he started preaching about Muhammad, and he said Muhammad, you know, on his pilgrimage from Mecca to Medina, or vice versa, I forget which one he said. What he doesn't say is that Mecca and the place of worship that the Muslims have right now, that, you know, that square house that you see, the Mecca, that used to be a place of worship of people in that region of 400 different religions. Some of them were pagan, some of them were Jewish, some of them were Christian, but 400 different religions prayed in that house. And what did the Muhammad and his followers do? They went there and they executed everyone, and they took that place of worship from the other 400 religions and made it theirs. So they're not interested in coexisting. And history will tell you they're not interested in coexisting with other religions. They want to destroy the other religions. And that's exactly what happened in Mecca and Medina.
Give me your website. We got to wrap, but tell me your website where people can find you.
Just my first name and last name.com, AbteenVaziri.com. On X, I'm Abteen Vaziri TX, Abteen Vaziri TX, Texas.com, or at X. And then all my other social media is just my first name and my last name. Thank you so much for allowing me to be on here. And
well, I want to get you back. And I hope you do well. I hope you do really well with your race. Thank you so much, Abteen. Appreciate your being with us.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, and thank you for your audience for listening. We all have to fight, and the worst thing that we could do is sending rhinos to Washington. We have to send people that have a backbone, that are not bought and sold by the corporations, that want to go to Washington and fight for the people, and fight for the people of the 32nd District.
100% agree. And you got guts, my friend, going right into the mosque and confronting them. Well, you got some guts. Good for you. We need more guys like that. Abteen Vaziri checking in tonight. Thanks, Annie Cyrus, for introducing us to him. We'll get him back. We'll have him back on. All right, we'll be right back after this break. Go to worldviewtalk.com. Get your satellite phone like I have, because you know what? China is in on our power grid. That is a matter of proven fact. If you want to have communications with your loved ones, your family, your children, maybe your spouse travels, maybe you have a child away at college, you want communication should the grid go down. That's why you need a satellite phone, worldviewtalk.com. But look what else they have. They also have solar generators. I have one of their solar generators. I have the Delta Echo 400, a solar generator. So I can, of course, charge my satellite phone. I can run my coffee pot. I can run my whole house if I want to. All the details are there at worldviewtalk.com, or use that number, 1-866 738-3224. They have very friendly operators that will explain to you their products, but you can explain to them what it is you're desiring to acquire. How much electricity are you wanting to generate with this solar generator? Well, they'll tell you what size you need. Worldviewtalk.com or 1-866-738-3224.